relax and settle, is teaching your dog how to go to a certain area. But Jasper knows that this couch is his place to go to when I ask him to. He goes here every morning and every night before I present his meal. It's gotten to the point where I don't even have to say place. He'll go there on his own and wait while I prepare it. And if he doesn't, I won't bring the meal out until he goes there, and I'll just look at him and say, "Are you ready?" He'll run and go on to his place. Now I've used place to show him I want him to go and hang out on the couch when people come to the door, so he's not right at the door, jumping, barking, what have you. It's helped out tremendously in many different ways. A couple different ways you can teach a dog to go to a certain place. I would definitely have a visual marker of some sort, so I would never, in a big open room, teach them to lay down. I want them to have a specific area. So let's say this carpet covered the entire floor. I might put a separate little doggy bed on it, maybe even a bath mat.
Towels, the mat at the door. Now at this point, because I've just practiced with different things, they see me lay something down, they just go lay on it because they're like, "Oh, a square. Okay, I can lay on that." Use whatever you have. It doesn't have to be something fancy.
Yeah. In fact, some people, even if they have a big couch, it's all the same color like this, they'll take a towel or a blanket and set it on part of it, and that's the place where not only they want their dog to station when they're in the kitchen or what have you, but also that's where the dog can lay on that couch, otherwise they can't lay on the rest of the couch. Works beautifully to have that visual marker for
the location can be just as much an indication as the item that you put.
I certainly take this blanket right here as a marker and put it on the end here and say I wanted him to be, you know, just in this spot. He can actually learn to just go on this marker. So I'm going to pick up his toys that he's eating right now, and I'm actually throwing a treat just as a good trainer example for you that I would never want to grab something so high value and just take it right out of it in front of him. So I'm trading it out for a treat I just threw for him onto the carpet. It's just good practice to get into. You don't want your dog hovering over such a high value item and going, "Why are you taking this away from me?" And then they're annoyed and frustrated before you even start training. 2 things to keep in mind while you're working on this is to have a whole bunch of treats broken up and ready to go, and pre-choose where you want to do this, what space you want it to be, and you also don't say a word now, a cue of what you want to call this, but think about what you might want to call this. Is it Jasper Place? Or go to your mat, go to your bed, go hang out, settle down. You can make it fun. So I'm just going to take these treats and throw it up there onto the place I want him to eventually be the place I want him to go to. Good. And then I'm going to throw one back here just to reset him and bring him back. Then I'm going to throw another one. And I'm going to try to get in a whole bunch of repetitions so that we have some quick learning happening here. I'm using luring because I'm luring him onto the area with the treat. You know why I'm not calling it anything yet? It's because, as you've heard me when I've taught before, say that dogs are also, besides their scent, they're very much visual learners. So we just want him to get some muscle memory for getting up in this location and it being amazing when he's up there. Right? We just want to show him that this is where treats happen. Isn't that amazing? Now, this is also where treats happen, but that's also a good choice. So, he's following my hand as I'm throwing the treat. I want him to actually see me throwing the treat because eventually I'll be able to point and tell him to go there. Right now, I'm also working fairly close to the place where I want him to post up because I want him to see that this is what we're focusing on. If you're doing this with a dog bed or a mat, I'm a big advocate of using your own body language in training. You can indicate to the dog what you want them to pay attention to. That's true of recalling a dog to you. See how I just did this and he started to pay attention to me? If you're having trouble getting your dog to focus on an area, you can turn your head and shoulders and hips and everything towards an area. This is the behavior we want eventually, but what I did with him at first is I worked on a sit and a down. He had a good sit and a good down. Didn't matter if they were perfect or not. And I also worked on something called settle. So if you can come up here for me one more time. Once we started showing him that this was the place to be, I would ask him for a sit and I would ask him for a down. And then I would take a treat and I would lower his head around to his shoulder so that his hip will go onto the side. And this is the actual skill of settle. So if Jasper gets up into his place now and he's squared off like this, if I tell him to settle, he's like, "Oh yeah," and he'll put his hip down onto the side. And I want that because it's a really nice relaxed position for him to be in. Now this is a little more advanced, but that position is much better for getting long-term relaxation than him being up in this pose, ready to hop up at any moment. So if I can start to teach his body what to do, his mind will follow. Again, I haven't said the word yet because I just want to show him what I want him to do. So we're going to tell him to come up here. Good. You notice I did not throw the treat that time. I just lured him over. That's another option you can do to actually lure your dog up instead of tossing it. So you stick it to their nose, bring them up, and then place it onto the surface that you want to be the big winning space. I would generally not feed him here as much. That's just my little thing I like to do. I like to feed the dog on the surface that I want to be the most amazing surface ever, because that is going to pair up with this is awesome. Good boy. So once I've got my dog sitting, laying down, settling, which can take a few repetitions, can take several repetitions. We're in no rush. We've got our baby gates up. Everything's managed, so we're just going to work on this. Then I might start to add the cue. I like to really break apart when I add a cue with a beat of time and then the motion, the luring that I've been doing previously, so the dog has a moment to hear me, process, and then see that it means the exact same thing we were doing before. If I say my word, which is place, Jasper, place, and I lure at the same time, he's going to be like food, 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 awesome, and not necessarily hear the word as the new cue. That means go and do what we've been doing for the last 5-10 minutes. So I really want to break it apart for him. Find it. So let me show you how that looks. Jasper, place, and then lure. The other thing you may have noticed is I had my treats neutral in my hand. He wasn't looking at them. If he were looking at my hand, I would put them behind my back, because I really want to make eye contact with him and say his name to get his attention, and then say the new cue, and then move with the treat and lure, because I want to break that new thing down for him and then show him, hey, this is the same thing we've been doing. Now it has a name. This is what it looks like. Again, we're still working in proximity to the place where I want him to go. And you see how he came right back up again? He's like, why would I not hang out here? This is where all the action is happening. So again, how you teach settle is he's in a square pose now. You take a treat, nice and low, over to the shoulder. Yes. When he puts his hip down on the side, you can mark him with your verbal marker of yes and release the treat into his mouth. Good boy. So that's how he learned what settle means. Again, we did it the same way. We broke it down where we had him in a down and we would just say settle, and then I would move and lure him, and he would lure his body over into that position. I'd say yes and release the treat. I would cash in on the idea of long-term wanting to do this and start tethering in the place where you want her to place. But if that's not possible, like a tether wouldn't work here for some reason, but this is what I want to use, then you could do it nearby, maybe on a dog bed or a mat, a towel, and then take that towel and start placing it onto that location.
You can do it the other way too, like say your dog takes to the fun place, but then isn't really taking to the tether. Once they like going on that bath mat on the couch, you can then put the bath mat down, and that will help indicate to them, oh, the tether's not bad, it's just lay on my mat just like on the couch. And it can help kind of relax them too. So again, flexibility, whatever your dog takes to, you can use that and teach it the other way.
And the way you transition this into real life use, you see he's staying hanging out there, because he's like, if I hang out here, treats are going to keep raining from the sky. So every now and then I just take a little morsel and place it down there in front of him again on the surface where I want him to hang out. What I did is I would start to move over here. See how he got up and he got activated? And then I'd come back over and give him another treat here. And turning away from a dog is really activating, like, don't go, don't go. They were gonna, chances are, follow you. So if you even need to face your dog at first while you back away to keep them in place. This time I go this far, and then I come back and give him a treat, mix it up a little bit. And then maybe this time I don't go far, but I turn my back, and then I come back. Because remember, you're gonna be very active in that kitchen. So you want this to be not a big deal.
In scenarios where you have to use multiple spaces, do so, or multiple items, because generalization is hard for dogs. It's typically the last thing where we learn that, oh, every kitchen, I don't jump on the counter. Oh, it's every coffee table. Switching it up and tethering them sometimes in certain locations, sometimes using certain mats or their bed isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's going to make them more flexible. In that same vein of like, oh, I went somewhere and my dog acted like they didn't know it. Once your dog is physically doing the behavior and seems to understand how to put their body in those situations, I often start waiting for the dog to offer it. I actually just reward their choice to do it. So once I have shown them how to do it and that it is rewarding, I start giving them the option. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is that the dog learns more permanently that way. It's a more effective way to learn for them to figure something out themselves than to be told and follow a command. So I'm really reinforcing what it means to them by letting them choose it. I also want them to be able to make that decision whether I'm there to ask them or not. What I want is this scenario, the kitchen, and a person being in there, and a person leaving, and just any time we're near the kitchen to be the cue to lay on that mat. I just want it to be the context clues are enough. I don't necessarily want to forever have to tell my adult dog to go lie down every time we come in the kitchen. So once I've taught it to them, I start giving them the option to make those good choices. I then just reinforce every time they do, and if they don't, I just kind of reset them. I also am not afraid to kind of do baby steps with it. So once you give them the choice to do it themselves, it might not be quite as pretty as when you lure them right into place. The thing you've exactly practiced, it's a little different. I might at first take halfway laying on the thing, or sitting on the thing, or just standing on the thing, depending on how tough it is for my dog. Some take to it quicker than others.
And by that meaning reinforce it, go over there and give them a treat on that location.
Really just do that every time I went into my kitchen. I wouldn't make a big deal about it. I would just try to be consistent so that once I've taught them this and I have them prevented from coming in, I'm then taking every opportunity to reinforce them making that good choice. There's a couple reasons I want to do it that way. One is because I want to be able to switch to a less frequent reinforcement schedule.
Constant treats.
Constant treats, yeah. I want them to enjoy laying there, that it's just a fun thing we do. I start alternating between praise and freedom and treats and just kind of switching up what reinforcement I use. Reinforcing them in that manner is the most resistant to extinction. What that means is your puppy, if they are finding something to be great and then it ceases to be great, they're not going to do it anymore. And so what I want is for them to always go to the mat and find that great, whether or not I'm present, whether or not I give them food. I don't want me being in the kitchen to be the only reason that they don't jump on the counter. Now at this point, after having practiced this consistently, I no longer use the baby gate. I now have such an issue where I walk around and I see my dogs just laying on the mat and I'm like, how long have you been here?
So your dog will start to offer that. You were thinking, just what I was thinking, they'll notice them and you almost forget what a joy it is that they're doing something great. You'll forget that they're no longer counter surfing or bugging you, but don't. Remember to keep an eye on them, and if you see them offering that behavior,
that's why I had to put the jar there. I made sure I had something there to visually remind me, because I'm going to see it on the counter. Yeah. I walk into the kitchen, both dogs come and lay on the mat, and I could be walking in to get like water and leaving, and then I don't necessarily always give them a treat. I might say all done, and then I just
or
leave.
Good job, guys, and then walk away.
Very good.
So actually, we have not only a twofer, but a double twofer, because think about what we said earlier with the tethering. That paired with going to a mat, you've got the greatest scenario for taking your dog out and about and enjoying their company and them enjoying their company with you, to have them know that when they're tethered to something, even if it's sitting at a cafe with, on lockdown with your foot on the leash or you're sitting on the leash, and a mat there that offers them a visual location to lay down and relax, that you're going to be able to enjoy each other's company and have fun. It's a great skill for them to know. There's a multitude of things that this is going to help with, including just building great mental and physical impulse control.
It's not a bad skill to have, even if your dog isn't a counter surfer. I still would like my dog to just settle down behind a gate if I put one up, or if I shut her in a room, or if I tie her to something, because it might not be for counter surfing. My cousin with her little children are over, and I just want the dogs out of the way. My grandma is taking a long time to get settled inside, and I don't want them to knock her over. Maybe I'm getting out the Christmas stuff, and I just don't want them in the ornaments. So,
and we get these calls when people realize, oh, next week everyone's visiting for the holiday. Can you come help me? I could try to help you at this point, but the baby gate's going to be the way to go, but we don't know how your dog's going to react to it.
Yeah.
So getting that, knowing what that is, how that's going to play out, way ahead of needing the scenario is really important. He may very well.
Yeah.
And that's part of why you want to try it before you need to do it, and there's pressure to succeed. So if he does, then we work on that aspect. Just the mere sense of him feeling, I need to protest. Probably she's talking, he's going to paw at the gate maybe, or vocalize and say, damn it, get me out of here. And that's perfectly acceptable to know that you might be up against that, and we can address that as we mentioned earlier, and of course further down the road with more detail.
This is another reason too why it's good to have options, because say your dog doth protest a lot, you don't necessarily want to ruin something like their crate. You can definitely use it if they are comfortable in their crate, or this could kind of make it worse if they're feeling like they're in there so much, or when they would rather be doing something else. So it's good to have options.
I want his crate to be special, happy. I don't want to ruin the crate and poison it. You can cover the crate. Some dogs are very soothed by the crate being covered with a sheet or a blanket, or even an actual crate cover that's designed for covering a crate, because they don't have the visual access to everything going on around them. Some dogs are not. Some dogs are like,
Find it claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic. I hear you're partying out there. There's something going on in the kitchen. I want out. I want to be a part of it. Again, testing these things out way before you need to have family over for the holidays or put up the Christmas decorations, whatever. Just to pick away at what you need to work on with your dog. Maybe your dog will be great at place, and this will actually work better for you than putting them behind a barrier, because they have barrier frustration. So like figuring that out is really important.
And there's a lot of things that in the moment doing something like this, you probably hear a lot of people use leave it and off. Those are both certainly good options. I most of the time just use sit, because that's what my dog knows so well, or touch. Those are their favorite things. The way you interrupt them and what you use, I've found, is not so important as the fact that they like doing it, and that it's followed up by the chance to do it right and succeed and get that thing they wanted. For example, if my dog got impatient and she were to come and put her little paws on the counter and she would sniff, I wouldn't kind of yell at her. I wouldn't really punish her. I'd actually try to be very neutral. If there was anything in reach, I would move it. But then I might actually kind of look at her and wait a second and see, like, do you think that's the best thing that you should be doing? Not with an ugly face or a mean face, but just like looking at her like expectantly, like, what's next? And sometimes that's enough to have the dog be like, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something else. And then I'm like, very good, like you figured it out. If that doesn't work, they just stare at you like, yeah, give me that thing. Then I might do something they know. So I might say a sit, or I might ask them to touch. If they don't know anything reliably, then I'm just going to take a treat to their nose and lure them down. But the really important part is to give them the chance to reset and do it right. So if they need help, because it's too much, I'll kind of show them back over to the mat, ask them to lie down, give them some help if they need it, but eventually figure it out themselves. So we kind of build up to that.
What that showed her in that scenario is, my dog wasn't ready in this given scenario to do this. It's too difficult for my dog. And that's okay. That just means you need to backpedal a little bit. Maybe the item on the kitchen counter or the table that you're sitting at was just too scrumptious a smell for them to leave alone. Maybe they're just really wound up that day because they haven't had enough exercise. It could be a lot of different things. It's all more information.
And a lot of times it was actually me. I had kind of started out strong and just petered off as I got busy. And then so they got bored and were like, well, that doesn't really work anymore. So maybe if I come over here, she'll pay attention. Like I said, kind of making it their choice, changing up the reinforcement schedule. Sometimes it's you who are proceeding too fast or not doing something enough. If the puppy or dog has a hard time being still for a long time, or they seem to be able to do it for a while and it's not necessarily that they're coming to jump on the counter, but they just want to get up, they don't want to just lay there, then I just make it shorter. After a couple seconds, I'll just toss one away, and when they come back over, I'll indicate to them. You don't have to necessarily feel like, boy, I have to be thinking about this constantly. That's why I'm so heavy on management, because for some people that's sufficient. You might find that your dog takes to the management right away and you don't even feel the need to train anything. That's enough. That trains them what to do. For some dogs, that's not the case, and training is going to be sort of a longer project, so I don't always necessarily have the time or energy to be working on it right then.
And that's okay.
So and that's okay. That's realistic. So the important part is that I don't let them practice that behavior I don't want just because I don't have time to be training. I need to be preventing them from doing so in that time, so that when I can, I'm encouraging them to do the right behavior. So the only thing that happens in that scenario is nothing, or what I want to happen, never that undesirable thing. And that takes a huge amount of pressure off of my shoulders.
And it's a little bit of tough love to you all too, because I have to tell you, if your dog's counter surfing, it is preventable.
Think of it as child-proofing your home. That's not forever. Eventually your child learns how to exist in a home without putting itself in danger 24/7. The same for your dog. This is a temporary thing while they learn how to behave, how to stay safe.
What about my dog grabbing towels off of where they hang in the kitchen? Same scenario, management. For a time, do not have them available to your dog. Or have them out, but again, don't allow them into the kitchen per our recommendations today, and it won't be a problem because that is too tempting for most dogs. And if it's always there for them to grab and you're having a battle between it, it just becomes a great game where your dog's like, this is awesome, I can get attention for grabbing this towel, even though they're yelling at me. Well, now we're playing tug. This is great.
If your dog really loves to tug and the towel is a constant thing, I might risk the counter surfing issue while I worked on the towel grabbing. If the other opposite was true, then I would do the opposite. Something that I would do in either scenario is I'm going to show them how to come ask to play tug.
An appropriate toy.
With an appropriate toy. Same as I'm letting them know, oh, you want some food? Well, if you lay down there, you don't have to come up on the counter and get it. I'll give you some. It's a way for them to still politely ask for things they want, but not in a way that gets them into trouble or causes an issue for you. I would actually keep a kitchen toy. Keep a little kitchen tug toy that you have on the counter or hung up somewhere. And when they come up, in a scenario in which they would normally go for the towel, I would then offer them the toy, maybe toss it for them and get them to start playing with that.
Yep, the toys stashed up high and hidden that you can grab in the moment you need them, and treats stashed up high in the moment when you need them, you can grab them, they're available to you. Because not only are you going to be able to prevent or interrupt inappropriate behaviors, but you're going to have toys and treats available to reinforce behaviors you like. Look at how Jasper is laying down there so peacefully. This is one of his favorite spots now, and that's because I paid attention. After I taught him that was his place to go to, I would go over and just pop a treat down there, like, look, it paid off again. I want to clarify one item that Christine pointed out earlier, which is an extinction burst. So an extinction burst, as she described, basically means I want the outcome to be what it's always been every time I A. That's very satisfying. I get what I want. The postman driving away after I bark at him at the door wasn't that successful. That was amazing. So an extinction burst is when you're trying to alter a behavior that's been going on for some time by choosing something to treat it as a consequence of something else. So in this case, in our scenario would be counter surfing. You're changing things up, you're putting baby gates or barriers in place. Now your dog says, I want it the old way, I want it the old way. And so for some reason, you're not listening to my barking, complaining, whining. And so now I'm going to raise my voice and start barking incessantly until you pay attention to me.
Because I expect
the same outcome.
Yeah.
I want access, I want access, I want access. Or I'm not used to you ignoring me and doing something away from me, and I'm frustrated by this. I want to be near you, I want you to pay attention to me. Take a deep breath. What you do, stay the course. Because if you give in at that moment, your dog...
It's going to be worse than ever.
It's going to be worse.
Yeah.
You've just trained your dog an even stronger behavior of whether it's protesting by barking or pawing at a gate. You've reinforced that so heavily because your dog said, oh, I just need you to try harder. If I try harder and I let her know or I let him know that, damn it, I mean it now. I'm upset. Oh, good. Okay, now you paid attention to me. That worked. So I just need to up the ante next time. Now, I don't want you to torture your dog. If your dog's not used to being away from you because they have isolation issues, that's another matter.
This burst is normal. The frustration of the expectation not being met, the outcome changing, but you can help negate it and make it kind of go away quicker by making sure you do what we said and telling them what will get them that thing they want. And
trying this in small increments way before you actually need it, so it's not a big issue. Little baby steps for success. Okay. All right, I think we're good. If you want more of this or any other topics, as usual, let us know. You can email us directly, comment in the comments here, and send up a signal into the sky at night with a light that says Wonder Dog University. We'll see it, and we'll make sure that we make another one based on what you need. So I hope this was helpful. So take care.
Who's a good boy?